So the Gemara asks, I'll just go back a couple of lines. So the Gemara asks, where do you know Azar Lagasrich? When I am a Rabbi Marziri, Shimu Vazinu al Tigbahu. Of Nachbar Yitzuk Amar Mehacha, Ram Lavacha B'Shachachta. And where's Shikha a problem? Chzuvi Shomer Lacha Pentishkach as Hashem Alekecha, and Yishomer is Allah, B'Chudir Babin Amar Beloi, Amar Babin Amar Beloi, Komakim Shnemer Yishomer, Pen V'al, Ein Elam Beloi Shaseh. Torah Shabbat Zimnu Amar Lo B'Shvei Rabasi, Zimnu Amar Lo B'Shvei Rabami. Kol Adam Sheish B'I Gasus Ruach. Somebody who has in him Gasus or Ruach. L'Soif Mismayit. Now it's important to note, what is Gasus or Ruach? There's something called pride, and there's something called arrogance. Pride is a mitzvah. A yid has to be vayigba libay b'dar keshem, and someone who is masbir that what does pride mean? Pride means a person has to realize and recognize the koiches and the milas that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave him, and use them with pride in the serving of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That is not an avera. The avera is arrogance. The avera is thinking ich ben epis. A person has to realize whatever he has is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he has to recognize them to use them. So pride is not a problem. It says vayig b'livay b'dar keshem. Arrogance is a problem. Thinking that you're better. Sometimes he said it. Eventually, Hashem is going to bring him down. He's going to become small. Or soon he'll become even less than small. Rumu ma'at. So let's look at the pasuk inside. We can actually see the lashon pasuk. Rumu ma'at, and then comes ve'einenu. So the Gemara says, maybe you say, okay, he becomes diminished, but he's still there. Hashem will take him away completely. But if a person is chayzer from his gaiva and he becomes a good person, well then nesaf bismanoi, he will be zoicha to live out his full life. Where do you know that? Avram Avinu, like Avram Avinu, shenemar, it says, V'humchu, if they become small, koil yikbutzun, they'll jump like koil. What's koil? Koil refers to Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. In benching, we say bakoil, mikoil, koil. Who do these three words refer to? Bakoil refers to Avram, mikoil refers to Yitzchak, and koil refers to Yaakov. So v'humchu koil, you will become humchu. I don't know if I touched humchu. I touched humchu means they became small, but that's not pshat. The humchu means v'mchazer v'nasa onav. Oh yeah, shemei mechazatzmai. Right. The humchu, if you do become small, I was right. Kechoil, you'll be like those three people where the Torah uses the word koil to refer to them. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, tichsivu ba'koil, mikoil koil. And Rashi tells us where it says each of these three psukim. So Rashi says, by Avram Avinu it says Hashem Berech is Avram Bakoil. By Yitzchak it says Va'oichal Mikoil. And by Yaakov it says Ki Chananani Elakim V'chiesh Likoil, which is what he told Esav. So these three words are referring to the three others. What is particularly fascinating is the words of the member are Nesaf Bismanoi Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu Gerade did not live out his full life. Avram Avinu lost 5 years of his life. And the reason why he lost 5 years of his life is because the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't want him to see Esav go to Tabrus Ra. So when the Gemara is trying to talk about somebody who filled all the years of his life, Avram, which should be the last person that the Gemara picks, because Avram was not Nesaf Bismanoi. That's the shayla that some people ask.
Also, wasn't it Esav who said Yesh Li Ko? Was it?
Esav said, "Ich maruf, ich make den Bus, ich will." Maruf hat gesagt, ja. I know. So, yeah, Esav said, "I have a lot." Yaakov said, "Yesh li kol," because I'm samech b'cholkei. Whatever I have whatever I need. I don't need any more. So someone said that a person, when it says Nesaf Bismanoi, it doesn't mean in his chronological years. It means Nesaf at a time where he was able to accomplish all that he was supposed to accomplish in his lifetime. And Avraham Avinu was a person, although he died 5 years younger, all of the madrigas that he had to do, he had to skip some rungs in the ladder, because Avraham Avinu was zoiche to fulfill all of his tafkidim in even his shortened life. If a person doesn't do tshuva and he remains a balgaiva, like the top of a stalk, for instance, a stalk of wheat, he will disintegrate. Why are you comparing him and his disintegration to the top of a shiboiles? This is already shared with two. There's two opinions on this. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. It means if you look at the top of the shiboiles, there's always some like extra like hair, finer growth on top of it, and that's what we're talking about. That falls off. The entire stalk is cut. If you hold like the mandamar who holds like the top of the shiboiles, just a little growth on top, that's why the pasuk makes sense. Why do you say shiboiles? It should say shiboiles imalu. Amar Basi v'chein the baby Shmuel mashal la'adam shenichnas l'soich sadeyu gavaya humalakin. If you look at your field and you see the tall stalks that stick up over and above the others, those are the one you cut. So you're saying those are the one you cut first because it sticks up. Did that how people cut fields? They look around the whole field and they find the ones that are tall and they cut them. Zogt ben Yoda. If you have a tree that has no fruit on it, its branches are going to stick straight up. But the branches that are full of fruit, the fruit weighs them down. So the ones that are growing straight up are like weeds. They're not good. Those you cut out. Because what type of person is a balgaiva? Someone who has nothing to offer. That's why very often ignorance and arrogance travel together. I find if I testing somebody, like when I interview people, I test them. I find that if they're knowledgeable, they answer the questions and they're very humble. But if they don't know what they're talking about, you ask me these questions. This is not my first rodeo. You don't need to ask me these questions. When the guy says that, when the guy is arrogant, that's the biggest litmus test to the fact that the guy is ignorant. Duvi, do you find the same thing? The more someone knows, the more humble they are. Exactly. Someone who's knowledgeable will never be ignorant. So that's why ignorant and arrogance travel together. And most Canadian goyim that I speak to don't even know the difference in meaning between ignorance and arrogance. Because when they speak about a guy who's not acting nicely, they'll say, he was being very ignorant. That's not even proper English. Ignorant means not knowledgeable. Arrogant means nasty. But they use the word ignorant to describe somebody who's being arrogant. But I don't mind that because I need to know if they know how to fix furnaces, not if they're an English major. Zok to Gemara. Vesdaka ushval. So that was the Ben Yahud. Vesdaka ushval ruach. Rav Huna Rav Chisda. Chadam, you helped me set it up. It was a shmak. Vesdaka ushval ruach. Rav Huna Rav Chisda. Chadam osi daka. Who's a Kadosh Baruch Hu going to go with? Let's see the whole pasuk inside. Okay, so let me see the lashon pasuk. That's why I see the pasuk inside and I don't butcher it. Yichoyamar Ram Venisa Shoichinad the Kadosh Shemoi. The Rebbeinu Shalom is going to say Morim Bekadosh Eshkan. So the Rebbeinu Shalom say the Rebbeinu Shalom was very high. Says Vesdaka Ushval Ruach. So we darshan in the pasuk as Chaim spoke out. Iti daka, meaning I will lift up the daka, the one who keeps himself low, his fal ruach, and I would lift him up to me. Ani es daka, I'm going to bend down to be low together with the daka. And it's more mistaber to say that a Kadosh Baruch Hu bends down to bring himself towards the Shafal Ruach. Shari HaKadosh Baruch Hu hiniach kol harim ugvois the Hishra Shchinos al Har Sinai. Right, the little Har Sinai just stood there inside, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu decided to give the Torah on Har Sinai. V'lo gova Har Sinai l'mayla, and Hashem didn't raise up Har Sinai. Rather, Hashem came down to little Har Sinai. Someone timed it. That's why it says Moshe kibul Torah mi Sinai. Moshe got the Torah from Sinai. Moshe got the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Musar Yeshua, talking about who he was makabel from. He wasn't makabel from Sinai. That happens to be where he was. So there are those who learn Moshe kibul Torah mi Sinai by using the mile of Sinai, by keeping himself dako shval ruach. That's why he was zoicha to be makabel to Torah. It's good to copy the ways of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Sharei HaKadosh Baruch Hu hiniach kol harim ugavois the Hishra Shchinos al Har Sinai. And there's a bracket here, but it's a nice line, so I'll read it. Hiniach kol ilanis toivos the Hishra Shchinos al B'sneh. I assume when he reveals himself to Moshe Rabbeinu. Omar Belozer kol adam sheyesh bo begasus arach. Someone who has in him arrogance, royu legadoi, he should be chopped down, kashera, like a tree of avodah zarah. Tzivach, it says in the pasuk, v'ramei hakoima geduim, the greats will be chopped down. Uchzefhasam v'asherehem tegadeun. So you see that gedia is the right activity to do. It's the right response to a balgaiva. From Rabbi Lozer, kol adam sheyesh boy gasus haruach. Anybody who has gaiva, ein afrei ninar. His earth will not be ninar. Pashat the taich is, he won't wake up by chisamesim. It says shoich ne'afar. Those are the people who will be naked and be maraning. They will be zoichet chisamesim. But it doesn't say shich v'ba'afar. Anybody who's lying in the earth, which would mean any dead person that's buried. Rather shoich ne'afar, those who live, who rest in the offer. So that means mishanase shochen la'ofar b'chayav. Somebody who was neighbors to the offer, he kept himself low, he kept himself humble. Gewaltig. Now, once again, there's another bombshell, Ben Yehoyada, on this line in the Gemara. The Ben Yehoyada asks, you don't find anywhere that a balgaiva is not oimed with chisamesim. There's lists of affairs that prevent somebody from standing up in chisamesim. But someone who's a balgaiva, you find anywhere that he doesn't get up in chisamesim. So the Ben Yehoyada says a gewaltig shtickle. He says, what happens? You're exhausted from working a whole week. And it comes a Friday night after they change the clock in the winter, and you get a bagel. You get a geschmack bagel. You get into bed by 7:30, and you can wake up the next morning at 8:30. Oh, you wake up so rested, so geschmack. But the only type of resting that comes close to that is when we were Bacham in Eretz Yisrael, and you closed that tris, and then you went to bed, and you woke up a week later. You wake up mamish geschmack rested, right? That's one way to wake up rested. There's another way to wake up after a deep sleep. You drank too much, and you had a geschmack purim, and the next day you wake up and you have a bomb splitting headache. You're hanging over. You're going great. So zokt Ben Yehoyada. When a tzaddik stands up by Tchis Mesim, he's going to feel like he just had a bagel Shabbos. He's going to feel like he had a geschmack shluf. He's going to get up and he's going to be rested. And he's going to feel great. He's going to be ready to tackle the world. The balgaiva who gets up by Tchis Mesim, yeah, he'll get up, but he's going to feel like he's just hung over. He's going to feel like Ben Yehoyada used the example of a drunk. He used the example of somebody who had to have surgery and they gave him narcotics to put him under. When he wakes up, he's dehydrated. He has a headache. He feels miserable. He feels like he was just run over by a bulldozer. So you'll get up all right, but you're not going to have that geschmack rested feeling. Rabbi Lozer said, Kol Adam, sheyesh b'gasus haruach, shechina meyalelas alav. The shechina is kevayachol crying for him, crying like or wailing for him. Shenebar v'gavoya mimerchak yiyeda. V'gavoya, someone who's high, a balgaiva mimerchak from far away. Yiyeda the Rebbeinu Shalom will be a yeda, and Rashi brings examples of the word yeda, meaning l'kainin, to cry for. Dorish Rabbi Vira v'Itemi Rabbi Lozer. Bo'er, come and see. Shaloi ki midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu midas basar b'dam. Midas basar b'dam gavoya royas gavoya. The rich people, they only hang out with the elite. They don't hang out with the riffraff. Then gavoya royas the shofel. But the elite wouldn't be found anywhere to socialize where there's people who are from the riffraff. But that's not the midah of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Who gavoya? The Rebbeinu Shalom is high up, but who does he focus on? The royas hashofel. He sees the one who's lowly. Shenema ki ram Hashem, but the shofel here. Amar b'chista v'teilim mar ukva. Kol adam sheyesh boi gasus haruach. Any person who has gasus haruach, if you ever wonder, somebody once asked, why is it that when a regular guy talks in shul, oh, you'll get trimmed at shah, shah, shah. And some people, no one screams at them in shul. So sometimes does it have to do with their age? Does it have to do with their stature? No, it has to do with what type of car they came to shul in. The fancy guy, so it could be that's pshat. Royas Tashofel, who gets screamed at in shul if they're speaking by davening? The shuffle guy, the big knacker, everybody's afraid to scream at them, so nobody sees them doing theirs. So talk to Gemara. Amar b'chista v'teimer marukva kol adam sheyesh by gasus haruach. Anybody who has in him gasus haruach, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Ein anivahu yachalim lader ba'olam. There's not enough room in this world for me and that person. I once was working in a woman's house, and she needed me to drill a hole in the wall of her house to put in an exhaust fan. So she told me, and she lived in a big house. She told me, be very careful when you drill that hole in the wall of my house and seal it up properly, because there's no house in the world that's big enough for me and a mouse. So, Ein anivahu yachalim lader ba'olam. Shenamar. This is not the part of the pasuk that we're darshaning, but the Malashi b'seiser re'eu oisay atzmis, the one who speaks ill of others in seiser, that's the person that I'm going to crush. Geva'inayim v'rechav leiva, the one who's a balgaiva oisay loy uchal, I cannot. But we darshan al tikri oisay ela itay loy uchal. Together with him, I could not survive. Yeah, that's such a lesson. I hear it. He took his space. Yeah, but see, when I learned this Gemara that says I can't live with him in that world, I assume that means he's got to move out. If you're saying Deicherag L'Shchina, it means the Shchina moves out. Yeah, I hear. For those who say that this is referring to Mesaper Lashon Hara, Shenemar Melashni B'Seiser Re'eu Oisei Atzmis. Amar Alexandri, Kolodom Sheish B'Gasus Ruach, Arfilu Ruach Kimoich Rasoi. Even a small wind will be able to blow him away. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, V'Rishoyim Kiyam Nigrash, will be blown and stirred up like the yam. Umayam, madich liyam, sheyesh bekame reviyos. There's a lot of water content in a yam. Nevertheless, ruach kimoich rosai. If you ever went boating in Lake Simcoe, Mati and I remember quite well. If you look to the top of the trees and you just see the leaves fluttering a little bit, you know that the water is so choppy you can capsize if you go out on a boat. And Mati, we experienced it. You don't need to see the winds blowing the trees over like the decal that has to move back and forth in the timing of a stira. Even a little flutter at the top of the trees, I already know it's too dangerous. Why? Because the great yam, with a little wind, ruach kimach rasai. So Adam, shein boyel revius, a person only has a revius achas al achas kama b'kama. And Rashi tells us that there's a halacha l'Moshe Messinai, that the minimum amount of blood that can keep somebody alive is a revius of dam. That's why a revius is called dam nefesh. That's why we learned Nazir that a revius dam is metama b'oil. because a revius dam contains the essence, the life of a person. Amar Abchia bar Ashi, Amar Rav. Talmud Chacham tzorich sheyeh boy. Amar Abchia bar Ashi, Amar Rav. This is a very important memra. There's a beautiful Meshech Chachma on this memra. Amar Abchia bar Ashi, Amar Rav. Talmud Chacham tzorich sheyeh boy echad mishmoyne b'shminis. That would be 1/64th. He needs 1/64th, a small sliver of a serving of pride, gaiva. Amar Rav Huna bar Yeshua uma'atre. And if he has just the right amount, not too much, it's like a wreath around him. He sasal the shibolta like the beard sort of that grows around the shiboilas at the top of the shiboilas. It suits him. It's nice. A little bit of pride. Amar Rabba said it puts Talmidei Chachamim and Rabbanim into a difficult spot. Vishamta de ispe, someone who has a little bit too much gaiva should be Vishamta or Vishamta de laspe. Gewalt. And Reb Nachman Yitzchak said, you know what? I don't need it. Loimi no, v'loy miktsasa. I'm not interested in any gaiva at all. Mi zuter d'ksiv avas Hashem kol gava lev. You know what? I don't need any. I'm not even going to get near reaching the pasuk of Tayavas Hashem kol gava lev. So Rashi says, "Gasus ma'at no v'haygenes." It's appropriate. Loyal Talmud Chacham u'matrosoi yesasa materis hashibolos. Because you need a little bit. You need a little bit. Why? So Rashi says, "B'shamta the isbei." If you have too much, that's partial. Why it's nabla. But b'shamta the lesbei. Why should it be in chayrim if he doesn't have any? The lesbei gasus porta v'she'ein b'nei ira yireim imenu. The ein boy kisasa materis hashibolos. I'm sorry, ein koyach lechicham. A rav who doesn't have a little bit of stolz, how will people respect him? How will people fear him to listen to him? So there's a murdik Gemara in Tainus. Abchia bar Ashi was sick, and he wasn't doing well. He wasn't doing well, and the Talmidim came to visit him. Amongst them were Papa, and Rav Papa said, "Bring the tachrichim." In other words, Rav Papa said, "He's done," and Rabbi Shalom made that Abchia bar Ashi should have a remarkable recovery. So Rav Chia was like embarrassed to greet Rav Papa was embarrassed to greet Rav Chia bar Ashi because like he had just written him off. I told him call the Chaver Eli wrote him off, so he was a little bit uncomfortable around Rav Chia bar Ashi. Rav Chia bar Ashi called Rav Papa and said, "Don't feel bad. I was dead. The reason why you saw death on my face, because I was supposed to die. But the Bezin Shalmaila paskined that since, and the words of the Gemara are, "Lo ukma b'dibure," he doesn't stelzich, he's a mevater. Since I was a mevater, they let me come back. So be'etzim, you're right, there was death on my face. So I'm not insulted that you saw that on me because it was correct. But since I'm a mevater, he's like ukma b'dibure, he doesn't hold his position, he'll be mevater. Therefore, they let me live more. Zok Meshech Chachma, Ukma Dibure, Pashup Shad is, he didn't stelzach on his own words. What are his own words? Talmud Chacham tzarich sheyeh boy echad mishmoyne shebeshminis. But Abchia bar Ashi didn't even stelzach on his own words. He didn't have even what he said you're supposed to have, a shminish beshminis, and that's why he came back, even though he was supposed to be written off. That's what the Meshech Chachma says. That's so the Vilna Gaon says Shminish B'Shminis is the 8th pasuk of the 8th parsha, which is the 8th parsha of Yishlach. Reishis Noach Lech Lecha Vayerech Haisara Toldos Vayetzav Yishlach. The 8th pasuk is Katonti Mikol Chasadim Mikol Emes. So the Shminish B'Shminis is also with a Katonti. And who said Katonti? Avram said Katonti, right? Yaakov said Katonti. Gewaltig. Amar Avuna Bered B'Shua. Uma'atra like Yisasa L'Shibalta. Amar Rabba. Shamte this baby, Shamte the last. Amar Nachman Yitzchak. Loy mi no, loy mi tosa. Mi zodi the ksivei. Tayavas Hashem kol gvalev. Amar Chizkiya. Ein tvilot shel adam nishmas elam kein meisem liboy kabasar. You have to make your heart soft, not rigid, like meat. Shenemar bar yamidi chodesh b'chodshoi yavei kol basar lishtachvos. Amar B'zeir. When you look at the parsha of the Dorim in Tazria B'Tzoyver, it's fascinating. When it talks about someone being infected with Taras. It says Adam ki yeh b'ar b'sorei neged taras, and it keeps on referring to an Adam. But when it talks about when a person finally gets healed, it says ubasar ki yeh b'orei neged v'nirpa. So when is there a refuah on the taras? That's only if he's basar, if he softens up. Let's read uvasar ki yeh b'orei shchin v'nirpa. When is there healing? There's healing when there's basar, when it's soft. Now that's actually talking about a nega that came on somebody who had a wound and it got healed. So, but a kalpan, we're proving that the word nirpa is associated with the word basar, with softness. Zog to Gemara, Amar B'Zera basar ksiv nirpa, Adam like ksiv nirpa. When it says Adam, it doesn't say nirpa. That's when it's introducing the nega. Amar B'Yochanan, Adam is Rosh Tevis, Efer, dust, Dam is blood, Mora is bile. That comes from his bile raven. So these are all things that are what a person is made up of, hardly things to be proud of, that should be make you into balgaiva. And basar stands for busha, strucha, smell, rima, rot, worms. Ikadamri, sha'oil. The shin is not a samach; it's a shin standing for the grave. Yasiv b'shin. So instead of using strucha, which is a sin, which sounds the same like the same word, let's use a word that actually begins with the same letter. Amar Bashi, he's going to be diminished. It says, when it introduces the negoyim, it starts off lasa'es. So lasa'es means someone who brings himself up, he thinks he's a knacker, v'lasapachas. So basically, someone who thinks he's a knacker will end up losing that nun. Chaim, you know which nun the knacker loses. The Ein says, El Loshen Gavoya, Shenemer Bal Kol Har Maram Bal Kol Agvois, Hanesois. Vein Sapachas, what does Sapachas means? Sapachas means a noch schlepper, someone who tags on. El Tvela, he's a tuffle. Shenemar Sapchenu no, Elachas Akahunois, Lechel Pas Lechem. When the Rebbeinu was telling Eli HaKoyin that his family will lose the Kuna Gedola, and they'll become like any other Kohanim. So the nevuah that Eli HaKoyin was told was, you're no longer going to be the knackers, you're no longer going to be the Kohanim Gedolim who will be in charge of who gets what chelik. Rather, you're going to be like anybody else. So now you're going to beg the new Kohen Gadol, please connect our family to one of the other mishmaros, so we should be able to get some of the basar, some of the matnas kahuna of the Beis Hamikdash. You're going to become a nochshleper. Look how great, humble people are in the eyes of the Rebbeinu Shalom. When the Beis Hamikdash was standing, Adam Makar of Oyla, so Schar Oyla b'yodai. Person was Makar Mincha, Schar Mincha b'yodai. Someone who's an anav, the Torah looks at him as if he brought all the karbanos. Plural. All the zvachim of the Rebbeinu Shalom is what? Ruach nishbara, a humble, broken spirit. His tefillah is not nemeses. Shenemar leiv nishbar v'nitka elakim l'sivzeh. What type of tefillah does the Rebbeinu Shalom always accept? Tefillah that comes from a leiv nishbar v'nitka. Kola sham, someone who assesses our choisav, his ways. In other words, he examines them and assesses them to make sure that he's doing the right thing. He'll be zoicha to be helped by Kadosh Baruch Hu. Shenemar v'sham derech, even though it says v'sam derech, we darshan v'sham derech, so it says v'sham derech ar enu b'yesh alakim. You will see the issue of the Rebbeinu Shalom al trickery v'sam with a sin, el v'sham, someone who assesses and analyzes and evaluates his ways. V'sham derech HaKadosh Baruch Hu will save him. Okay, now we're going to get back to Masechah Sotah. I just want to share with you one quick thing that the Torah mentions about the Sma. The Torah says that there's 4 places in Shulchan Aruch where it's mentioned ma'oid ma'oid. One place where it's mentioned is l'gabe arayis. Ma'oid ma'oid, the person should stay away from arayis. It's a very radical lashon. When it talks about ribbis, the Shulchan Aruch says ma'oid ma'oid, you should stay away from ribbis. When it talks about a doctor treating his patients, it says ma'oid ma'oid, be careful to give your patient the right type of drug. And it also says it l'gabe the isser of taking shoichad. Ma'oid ma'oid, you should be careful not to take shoichad. So the Torah wants to say, "Vos happens these places?" It says "moed moed" because it's referring to the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, where it says "moed moed" have a shval ruach. A person has to be not a shval ruach, moed moed, a radical double lashon. Why? Because all of these four places where the Shulchan Aruch uses the word "moed moed," the nichshol of falling for those things stem from gaiva. Someone who's a dayan. He's great. He can take a little shoichad. Ma'oid ma'oid, stay away from your gaiva and don't take that shoichad. Someone who's lending money, I'm a knaka, I'm a gvir, I'm lending out money to kimpnich. No. Ma'oid ma'oid, stay away from the gaiva. Not your money, it's their someone's money. Don't take ribbis. Arise is poshut, comes from haughtiness. And the fourth place was by a doctor. Everybody knows what's the difference between God and a doctor. God knows that he's not a doctor, right? So a doctor has to know, ma'oid, don't be a bagaiva, don't think you are. I just meant to say the other side. Zok to Gemara, Ketzad mekanala. So what is kinui? Correct Gemara, and this Chaim asked right away when we learned the Mishnah. What did the Mishnah say? How are you mekana? He says, Al didabri employing. That's the lashon of kinui. The Chaim asked, that's not kinui. Zok to Gemara, Guvakasha. Amrit Amr la b'fnei al tedabri imishploni zeh alma dibur stiru. If that's how the Mishnah is describing kinui by al tedabru, so that means speaking to somebody will be a violation of that kinui. But then when the Mishnah fears eyes with what constitutes an ignoring of the kinui is tani dibra imai adayin muteres lebeisa muteres lechal b'truma. This is what the Mishnah means to say. If you said Al Tadabri, then no matter what she did, it's not a stira. V'dibra or Al Tadabri v'nistira v'loiklum. But if she said Al Tistri, if the husband said Al Tistri, and v'dibra imay adayin muteres lebesa, muteres lechal b'truma, because that's not a violation. But nichnas the imay lebesa seiser, after her husband said Al Tistri, the shasuk deituma, that's asur lebesa. If her husband dies before she drinks from the mayim hama'arim, so she's still in a matzav of suffix, then yibum is not allowed if she has a brother-in-law, only chalitza. Why can't they do yibum? Rabbi Yosef, Amr Krad, a pasuk says, we're going to have like many different terutzim, but we'll just learn some of them. The pasuk says, "V'yotzami beisai v'halcha v'hoisha le'ish acher." It's talking about a man who found in his wife ervas davar, so he gives her a divorce, and who should she marry? An ish acher. Why do I have to say leish acher? Leish acher v'lo liyavim. He has to marry a third party, an outsider, not yibum. Amalei abai el mehata chalita nami lo tivai. So if the pasuk, you're dashing a pasuk that says a woman who is found with ervas davar, such a woman cannot marry, cannot do yibum, can only marry an ish acher, so then why do we need chalitza? Why does the Mishnah say there's chalitza? Amar Leah, I don't understand. That's not a kasha. If the Baal was still alive, even though she's usher to him, mi loy boy get, she wouldn't be mutter to marry anybody unless he gave her a get. Hashtanami, that her husband's not alive, tiboy chalitza. That was one shot in why chalitza is blood. Mishabemes, v'yistamri, Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rachmana Amar, v'yotzam ibesai, v'holcha v'hoisel ish acher. Why should she marry somebody else? Not to ruin his own household. Why? Because we learned a woman who's mezana destroys a household. That's why he should get rid of her. You're going to suggest that yibum should be done? We don't want her to destroy his household. Well, if you don't want to destroy a household, so after he dismisses his wife for an ervas dovar, how could you let her marry anybody else? She's going to ruin somebody else's house. Amrlei, Mikara meaning al karche. We're not forcing anybody else to marry her. By Yibam, you want to say that there's a chiyuv for someone to marry her. Can't say such a thing. She's a home wrecker. But somebody wants to marry her, that's his own option. Okay, we'll stop here, Bez Hashem. I will be mamshech tomorrow. I love those two chidas, those two